Hi, welcome to Off Script. I'm Zach Lewis.
And I'm Dr. Draper.
Today on the show, the 96th Academy Awards are here. Yes, it finally happened. We found out if Oppenheimer is better than the Holdovers. We found out if Christopher Nolan is the best director of all time. Whether or not Scorsese got snubbed 10 times in one evening. All of that coming in our Oscars segment, coming really soon. We're going to talk about some trailers, some upcoming things coming out this summer that we think are worth keeping an eye on this week on the show. We're also going to take a look at this little Hulu picture called All of Us Strangers. This is Andrew Haigh feature. Boy, I should have been a little bit more prepped, but I was excited to talk about Oscars. Anyway, it's a drama. Paul Mescal's in it. Yeah, it's over on Hulu. We finally watched it. We're going to talk about that towards the end of the show. Light week of news this week, but that's because all eyes were on the Oscars. I do want to get to some small stories before we get to the big ones, though. And our first story, back from the set of Alec Baldwin's Rust. I can't believe we're still talking about this movie, Andy. This movie's still happening. What is going on? What had happened with the Alec Baldwin Rust shooting, and what's going on now?
So just to refresh people's mind, this is the incident where Alec Baldwin accidentally shot and killed cinematographer Helena Hutchinson's on the set of the film called this Western Rust that they were in development. And the armorer, which is the person that handles the firearms on a movie set, Hannah Gutierrez-Reed, has officially been found guilty of involuntary manslaughter. Her trial has been going on the last month or so. She faces up to 18 months in prison. She has not been sentenced yet. That's going to happen in the next month or two. So a big kind of decision finally made in this case, and Alec Baldwin himself will go on trial in July. And he also faces involuntary manslaughter charges. So that's a big development.
It seems hard to believe from the outside that this is still kind of ongoing. I mean, I understand, the wheels of justice are a little slow to move. I get it. That's how it works. I understand that's the system. But even still, I feel like I've heard him be cleared and then not be cleared. And then somebody said they were responsible. And then the assistant director was tied up in this thing. Why is it all so muddy? And is this the end all be all? These are the rulings. We're going to know for sure. And then lastly, go ahead.
This has just been such a troubled prosecution. The prosecution has kind of been fumbling along the entire way. At one point, they charged him with a law that actually hadn't been implemented yet. They had to have one of the prosecutors step down because of conflict of interest reasons. At one point, Alec Baldwin's charges were dropped, and then they recharged him after examining the facts a little bit closer. So it's just been a huge mess, and it's just been a huge mess. Alec Baldwin has settled with the family and has settled a number of lawsuits regarding to this, but the state of New Mexico still found it important to go after someone for the death of the Helena Hutchinson's, and so that's why we are here almost 3 years later.
One more thing. This movie is still coming out, right? Which is hard to believe. Are you still want to see this flick? Because I think I'm out, man. I don't think I want to see the weird Alec Baldwin murder movie, you know?
It's historic. It's a piece of history now. You have to.
No, it's true.
It's a piece of cinema history.
Smithsonian. Library of Congress is going to get a copy.
You're right. You're right. They started making this movie. People have invested in it. They have to finish it. But you're exactly right. Who's gonna see this? How many? Are they gonna sell it to a streamer, or I feel like no one's gonna want to go and see this.
Is Netflix gonna want Rust at the top of their homepage, 60% of the screen for 3 days? When it's trending, is that what you're gonna want up there? Because that's gonna bring some smoke. Variety's gonna have an article about that. I don't know. I don't know what the plan is with Rust, but as far as I know, it's basically finished, and I'm sure they're putting it together now or still shooting. Who knows? But yes, it's still happening. More on this story, when we hear it here on Off Script. Sub for more. Next story, Nintendo and Illumination are making another Super Mario Brothers movie. I don't think anybody's surprised by this. They announced it this week in honor of Mario Day, which is just yesterday, March 10th. And when you write it out, Mario, kind of looks like MAR10, March 10th. Mario Day. Anyway, Shigeru Miyamoto, creator of Mario, announced this along with a couple other Nintendo games coming along with the Mario announcement. For us in the movie world, this means another $1.3 billion turning out for the Super Mario Brothers movie 2, right, Andy? I mean, I can't believe how much money. I guess we knew it was going to make a billy, but my God, like the first one made so much money. Yeah.
Because when you get a successful sequel, a lot of times you get a boatload more money to make it. So who knows? They could hire more voice talent, just spend more on animation. It could be longer. Like the first movie is pretty short; it's 90 minutes. So I mean, they'll probably make it longer, 100, 105 minutes, that sort of thing. And I mean, it's probably going to kick off like even more films. This is like they're going to be part 1 of 3 of the Mario saga or something. It's going to be huge.
This next one's also going to be made in partnership with Illumination again. Of course, they made the last one along with the Despicable Me series. They had those Dr. Seuss films, The Lorax and The Grinch, Secret Life of Pets, the Sing movies. Migration was their most recent feature. It's going to be babies. It's going to be a baby movie, right? We didn't know the first time. We know now, and especially because they're doing it with Illumination again. That's who this movie is going to be aimed at. The little kiddos, all right? That's who this is going to be. It's probably going to make another Billy, right? Like, why wouldn't it? I assume this movie's going to do great on its face. Maybe not quite as good, bit of fall off. Maybe we're looking at like 800 million, but I feel like it's almost such a sure thing you could call it this far out front. Like the Super Mario Brothers movie will make a ton of money, right? Like it's all but a guarantee.
Yeah, absolutely. If anything, it's going to make even more because now you're going in with a property that was already really successful that everyone loves. Already audiences built in, parents and kids love it. 4-quadrant film. I mean, if anything, it should aim for $1.5 billion, if not more.
You know who wishes they had a banger like Super Mario on their plate? DreamWorks. They just put out Kung Fu Panda 4, right, this last weekend, which did pretty good for what it's worth. I think it's the biggest opening, but I also think it's the worst rated one on Rotten. Is that what I was reading? It's like doing hot, but for all the wrong reasons.
Yeah, that's what I heard as well. This is the best opening since the original back in 2008, which opened at 62 million. This opened just short of that at 58 million. So, I mean, pretty close, of course, not accounting for inflation, but still pretty good for something that it's been almost 10 years, I think, since the previous Kung Fu Panda film. So it's been a while. Yeah, it's probably good enough. It'll probably have legs. There's not much for families and kids in the cinema right now. And so this is what I was saying last week is that when there's no competition, that a bad film might do well just because there's nothing else to see.
Yeah, that's very true. Like it's uniquely timed. And of course, who doesn't love a DreamWorks sequel? I know that new Puss in Boots movie did okay, right? That was good for them. And this is traditional cinema, like traditional animation, looks a lot like the old one. They're not doing any kind of wacky style like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or Spider-Verse. And if anything, I wanted to mention shout out to DreamWorks for just giving it a 4 on the end, the number, and not making it like Kung Fu Panda Enter the Fist or The New Legacy or some kind of goofy subtitle. They just went with it flat, 4, boom, you know what it is. Respect. Somebody in marketing probably told you that was a bad idea, but as somebody who can barely keep up out here, I appreciate it. Meanwhile, Dune 2 is still doing great, right? Crossing the $200 million global line, I think. I read that in its first
370 worldwide now.
God, 370? Oh my God. I mean, Billy, what do you think? $1 billion film? Think it's going to clear it?
We'll see what the staying power is. That's what's really hard to call this early is what kind of legs it's going to have. Is it going to be playing in the theaters for the next 6 to 8 weeks? If so, then yeah, maybe. But it might have a drop off. It might stall out somewhere before then. I'm going to say like 700 to 800 million. I'm going to be conservative.
Yeah, and the only other movie I think we're talking about at the box office this week is Blumhouse's horror film Imaginary. Right? I don't think if we talked about Imaginary once on this show, I don't think we looked at the trailer for it. I don't think we've mentioned it's happening. We definitely have not watched it. It's got like $10 million. A little girl has an imaginary friend who's weird, right? And her mom's like, your imaginary friend seems awful real. That's simple. Blumhouse, right? Blumhouse horror, just putting out C- cinema scores left and right. Good for them. I love it.
Yeah, it's starting to get really they need some better ideas over there because like haunted stuffed animal, haunted swimming pool, it's like you guys got to do something better, man, like really.
Yeah,
but it probably did fine. We do got some good horror coming up. We got Sydney Sweeney's new horror film Immaculate coming up in the next few weeks. We have that the Omen prequel film. So horror heads, fear not. You got stuff on the way.
Where's Skinamarink 2? That's what the fans really crave, right? Skin to Marink. Anyway, we should move on to the biggest news of the week, of course. Normally, we end up spending way too much time on the Oscars every time we cover it on the show. So this year we've streamlined. We've tightened it up. All right, we got a lockdown. We're ready to go. We got a presentation that I think you guys are really going to be looking forward to seeing. So if you're joining us on the live stream, if you're listening, wherever you're at, please enjoy as we sit back and talk about. Andy, take it away.
Right. So the Oscars have come and gone. The 96th annual Oscars started way back in 1929. Big fun show. Jimmy Kimmel hosted. He's not super exciting, but he's a safe bet. There were some fun performances, good speeches. We didn't actually watch because I was going to see Dune 2 again, which I can talk about later. But also, it's hard to watch the Oscars because they don't stream anywhere, and you got to have a cable package, and it's the whole thing. But we're gonna jump right into awards and talk about the winners and losers, and we'll start with Best Picture just to round out the nominees, and then we'll get to the big winner was Oppenheimer for Best Picture. Other nominees were American Fiction, Anatomy of a Fall, Barbie, The Holdovers, Killers of the Flower Moon, Maestro, Past Lives, Poor Things, and The Zone of Interest. So a full year of really great films, and Oppenheimer taking home the big prize. Zach, what are your thoughts?
I think Oppenheimer's kind of the perfect one to do it. It was my top for the last year. And let me tell you, I've really come around on Holdovers. I think there was some sneaking suspicion that Alexander Payne might swing in and make something happen, but not for Best Picture. And it's reflected nicely, I should say, in the Best Directing category. Often people say, well, how does Best Picture not also win Best Director? This year, it did. Chris Nolan wins for Oppenheimer. Huge W over Justin Triet for Anatomy of a Fall, Martin Scorsese for Killers of the Flower Moon, Yorgos Lanthimos for Poor Things, and Jonathan Glazer for Zone of Interest. Is this his first? I'm pretty sure it's his first Oscar, right? It's hard to believe.
Yeah. Because
like,
Nolan
really
has
hard
been,
to believe,
been
but
without one, and it took him a while to even be nominated. What I've been saying is that these Oscars were probably the most predictable, where the predictions were actually like 98% correct, with Oppenheimer kind of sweeping most things, winning 7 awards. But the big story that leads to, which we'll talk about at the end, are the big losers, because a lot of people walked away completely empty-handed. Moving on to actor in a leading role, went to Cillian Murphy from Oppenheimer. Other nominees included Bradley Cooper for Maestro, Coleman Domingo for Rustin, Paul Giamatti for The Holdovers, and Jeffrey Wright for American Fiction. Cillian Murphy gave an incredible performance. 3 hours. He's got to put the whole movie on his back. It's just the right amount. Like, you could overdo it. You could be too weird. You could be too lame. He really nails the tone of this character. He said he spent 6 months getting ready, which was funny because Bradley Cooper was talking about how he spent 6 years learning to conduct. But Cillian Murphy, he definitely deserved it. Zach?
Murphy just has such a silhouette as J. Robert Oppenheimer, the man who moved the earth, right? He's this like gaunt, thin man cast against like this explosion on the poster, right? We all saw the ads for months. Like, it makes you stand out in a performance. And while everybody else in here is fantastic, like, I think he just falls so much into it that you forget you're looking at an actor and it just feels like you're a part of the world. Same goes for Emma Stone, winning for Best Actress for Poor Things. Big upset over Lily Gladstone for Killers of the Flower Moon. I saw people on Twitter screaming robbed. Also in the category, Annette Bening for Nyad, Sandra Hüller for Anatomy of a Fall, and Carey Mulligan for Maestro. Andy, we saw Poor Things. We also saw Killers of the Flower Moon. What do you think?
I think Emma Stone's really deserving. She carries that entire movie 2.5 hours on her back. It's a wild thing that she has to do, very physical role. Lily Gladstone is good as well, but the problem is that early on in the awards circuit, there was this thing that Lily Gladstone maybe should have been nominated for supporting actress and not lead actress, because she's not in the movie very much. She's only in there for about a third of it. So a lot of people were thinking that maybe she should have gone for supporting actress. Also, but Killers of the Flower Moon won 0 awards, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit later, but I think there's part of a larger message going on here. But it really could have gone either way. That was the category that most people were unsure of.
Yeah, I get that. You want to take Best Actor, or should I?
Yeah, Best Actor in Supporting Role went to Robert Downey Jr. for Oppenheimer, who was predicted to win. Not a big surprise here. Other nominees included Sterling K. Brown for American Fiction, Robert De Niro for Killers of the Flower Moon, Ryan Gosling for Barbie, and Mark Ruffalo for Poor Things. This is some of the best acting that we've ever seen Robert Downey Jr. do. And it's funny because we've mostly been seeing him do the comic book thing for the MCU movies for the last 15 years, and to see him do a dramatic role that's very nuanced and complex, and a character that's he becomes the antagonist across the whole film, but he doesn't kind of start that way. One of the best performances he's ever given.
Yeah, like really fascinating role from Downey. And one of the things he mentioned in an interview early was how he is not the lead in this in that film. He is very much the background, and that was a big lesson for him to learn. Like, you're not Tony Stark here. Like, you are a background character. You are not the front runner here. Like, you're going to be the back. So I think he managed to slip into that role particularly well. So, a shocker, De Niro did not get something. Listen, I love De Niro. I know he's gotten a lot. Dude, he's like the literal devil in Killers of the Flower Moon. It's so great. And Mark Ruffalo, just recently seen him in Poor Things. Incredible performance. Fantastic. In regards to Lily Gladstone maybe having been in supporting for Best Actress for Supporting Role, we should talk about that. Category included Emily Blunt for Oppenheimer, Danielle Brooks for The Color Purple, America Ferrera for Barbie, Jodie Foster for Nyad, that Andy just covered just last couple weeks ago on the show, and Divine Joy Randolph for The Holdovers, who walked away with it. We are Holdovers stands on this show. We love The Holdovers, that's for sure. But I'm going to be honest, I really thought Danielle Brooks might scoop it for The Color Purple. She was so stellar in that movie. She sings, she dances, she cries on screen. I mean, she's tremendous. Andy, what do you think?
I mean, Deva and Joy Randolph pretty much had this locked the moment that movie dropped. Everyone was saying it's her. Like 2 months ago, zero competition. And the rest of this, it was a little bit of a weak year. Outside of Danielle Brooks, who's real strong. Emily Blunt is good, but her role's very, very small. America Ferrera, had a big role in Barbie, but it's a background character. Jodie Foster is kind of the most head scratching nominee. That's some Netflix lining someone's pockets right there. It's
big
fine.
Netflix.
Yeah, she's much better in True Detective Night Country if you want to see some good Jodie Foster acting.
Yeah.
Best writing, adapted screenplay went to American Fiction, written by Cord Jefferson. Other nominees include Barbie, Oppenheimer, Poor Things, and The Zone of Interest. So American Fiction, this is one that only Zach has seen. So what are your thoughts on this?
Actually, really pleased this one got it. American Fiction is a film about writing, so how appropriate that it should get the writing award. And it's from a book, so obviously adapted. But most importantly, it's a film about making something that you feel is unpopular that becomes deeply popular in spite of your own spite. And I think, like, in that way, American Fiction slipping to the top here and smoking the competition, blowing past Oppenheimer, Poor Things, Zone of Interest, for God's sake. Really, actually kind of amazing and true to form for what's going on in the film. Like, great pick. As for original screenplay, big category this year. The Holdovers, Maestro, May, December, and Past Lives all nominated, but none of them take it over Anatomy of a Fall that wins out of France. Huge win. Andy, we watched that film on the show. What do you think?
Yeah, really well deserving. Incredible courtroom drama. Lots and lots of dialogue. The characters have to speak a lot in multiple languages. There's at least 3 different languages. It's mostly in French and English. There's a little bit of German in there as well. And just like the themes of how kind of women are treated and certain expectations, and also preconceptions about both men and women. It's a very complex movie with complex themes. And the rest really, really strong, except Maestro. All there, a lot of them. Celine's song. This was her debut film, and so in her first film, she's been nominated for both best picture, director, and writing. Like, it's an incredible feat for her first picture. Best animated features. This is where there was a little bit of controversy. So the winner went to The Boy and the Heron from Studio Ghibli and Hayao Miyazaki. Other nominees included Elemental, Nimona, Robot Dreams, and Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. This is the one that a lot of people thought that Spider-Verse was going to win, but I'm not surprised that The Boy and the Heron did as well.
Yeah, I'm a big Miyazaki fan on here, and I loved Boy and the Heron. It was one of my top 10 of the year. Also, want to mention before I mention Spider-Verse, huge Disney L in this category. 2023 was a bad year for Disney. Where is Disney and their new Disney feature? Where is their princess film? Where is your God now, Mouse? It's not looking good for Disney, but what I can tell you is Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse did great. Like, it's so great. That is the kind of film that moves the animation, like the medium of animation forward. I can't wait to see the follow-up nominated. You know it will be. And also no TMNT, no Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Anyway, I want to jump down to Best International Feature because we've actually seen a few of these, and the ones we haven't, we certainly want to. Nominees included Io Capitano from Italy, Perfect Days from Japan, Society of the Snow from Spain that we watched over on Netflix, The Teacher's Lounge in Germany, and The Zone of Interest, Jonathan Glazer's film out of the United Kingdom, which was the winner. How do we not talk about Zone of Interest at the Oscars? It's not the only award it won tonight. Incredible win, and I know we haven't seen all of these. I do want to catch Perfect Days out of Japan, but even still, Society of the Snow catching a nom. Big category. Not too shabby this year.
Yeah, this was a very strategic thing that the studio decided to not put Anatomy of a Fall as Best International Film, and that kind of led the way for Zone of Interest to kind of take it and open up a slot for another film. Again, one of the most incredible experiences of 2023. If it would have come out in time, it would have definitely been at the top of my top 10 list. Just unforgettable, and it allowed him the platform to talk a little bit about. He said something very interesting about the Israel-Gaza conflict that said, my film is not about what happened 80 years ago. It's about what's happening today, and about the way we dehumanize other people, which allows terrible things to happen all over the world. I was going
to say I should jump in here. Yes, I agree. It's a wild film. It also won another award. We'll mention it in just a minute when we get down to it. We do need to skip around a little bit, though.
Yeah.
Although I go ahead.
I was going to jump into Best Costume Design and Makeup and Hairstyling. They both went to Poor Things.
Oh yeah.
As we've said before, incredible film sets that are cartoonish and larger than life, and they built a lot of it. They're actually on set for a lot of the things there, and incredible costuming in this the world of Bella Baxter. So not surprising, it's a good win for them.
It's funny. I definitely saw some people mention, hey, how did Poor Things win out over Barbie? Barbie had incredible stuff. And it's like, listen, costuming was brutal this year. I remember watching Napoleon and thinking they were going to take costuming. Killers of the Flower Moon had incredible costuming. Barbie also had incredible costuming. So the fact that Poor Things comes out on top really is just a testament to how wild some of the designs on there. Same go for production design. I wanted to make a quick mention for the winner of Best Live Action Short Film, The Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar. That's Wes Anderson feature over on Netflix. Wes Anderson is officially an Academy Award winner, and while he wasn't at the awards, that's Wes Anderson stan. I wanted to make sure I mentioned him here. Best Cinematography, big category this year. El Conde, Killers of the Flower Moon, Maestro, and Poor Things all nominated, but the winner is Oppenheimer. Hoyt van Hoytema shooting practical, as little CGI as possible, putting weird LEDs in front of Cillian Murphy's face and filming him out of focus. It all worked. Somehow they've convinced the world that physics is possible, and I don't know, shooting practical. It seemed to work. Shooting IMAX, Christopher Nolan doing his thing. My God, win another award. Crazy.
Yeah, and Best Original Score also went to Oppenheimer. Wanted to put it, the soundscape that created by Ludwig Göransson is almost its own character in that film. Oppenheimer also won Best Film Editing. I wanted to talk a little bit about Best Original Song, which went to What Was I Made For from Barbie. This was the only award that Barbie won. So Barbie almost got shut out. Big win, though, for Billie Eilish and brother Phineas O'Connell, who's her writing partner. This is Billie Eilish's second Oscar, and she's like 24 or something. She's super young. So really incredible for her. Best, Zach, you want to talk about Best Sound?
Yeah, I wanted to mention in regards to Best Original Song. Yeah, they did play 2 songs from Barbie, right? Ryan Gosling did I'm Just Ken, and Billie Eilish got up and did What Was I Made For with her brother Phineas O'Connell. Advertising. Lots of Barbie advertising. Lots of Barbie marketing. Not a lot of Barbie wins, which is kind of gross. But best sound. Yes, big category. Nominees included The Creator, Maestro, Mission Impossible, Dead Reckoning Part 1. Haven't seen a lot of Mission Impossible on these lists. Oppenheimer and The Zone of Interest. Zone of Interest takes it. If you've seen Zone of Interest, of course it takes it. What are you, crazy? And if you haven't seen Zone of Interest, you're probably thinking, what do you mean? How does Zone of Interest have better sound than these movies? The soundscape in Zone of Interest is genuinely revolutionary. I've never seen or heard anything like it. It is incredible. Like, it expands the language with which we are able to create cinema. It is nuts. You have got to listen to the Zone of Interest. Andy, thoughts? What do you think?
Yeah, it's almost like there's a film within a film. There's the film of the family living outside the concentration camp, and the sounds, the horrors, for lack of a better term, are all happening in the background, and that's what we're talking about when we talk about the soundscape. There is no music, but it's the screams, the very faint screams that you hear. It's the trains arriving, the rumble of the furnaces, which we all know are in the made for human misery.
Camps, dude, gunshots, boots, all kinds of stuff.
And so it's just this thing that really adds to the mood and really makes the movie just incredible thing it's shocking. And there's characters in the film who cannot take just hearing what's going on because of what it signals that's going on within the movie. You want to close us out here, Zach?
Yeah, best visual effects. Big category this year. Nominees include The Creator, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, and Napoleon. Almost looks like the Redheaded Stepchild category, right? All the guys who were nominated but didn't win, but ultimately it goes to Godzilla -1. Huge W for the Godzilla team. Thank God, right? Little representation. All the fans who love that movie got a little something out of it. And why not, right? Like, it's low budget, but it's also kind of incredible what they were able to do with that budget. I do think there was some crunch. I do think it's worth mentioning there were probably some VFX designers who got abused on that film. But you know what? They sure got an Oscar out of it. So hopefully some practices are, reformed. People maybe get paid a little overtime they might be due and don't have to sleep under their desks at the offices. And hopefully they continue making more rad Godzilla movies.
Yeah. Big win. It's rare that this award goes to kind of an international film, and it's also a way of rewarding what everyone said was kind of a special movie. In another year, it might have even been nominated for Best International Feature. So this is a way of kind of rewarding it. Again, $15 million film winning over films that cost $200 million. Really incredible.
I guess larger thoughts on the ceremonies proper, right? Because we need to talk about big wins and big snubs. But quickly, before we get to that, the surface stuff. John Cena coming out, right? Ryan Gosling doing I'm Just Ken. Them having the dog from Anatomy of a Fall with the fake clap they filmed in advance. All good things, right? Like all the kind of things you see gift on film Twitter. And any hot takes. Overall, it seemed pretty cheery in the room. I don't know. It seemed pretty good.
It's a hard show to get right, and it's so easy for things to go wrong. I think if you just get kind of a plain bland show, that's actually the goal, because it's really hard for these two. It's hard to get a great show, and it's really easy to get a bad show. There's just so many big famous names and egos. No one wants to host this thing. Jimmy Kimmel was back. He did fine. He's safe for TV. The presenters. The one thing I had heard is that they had, like, when they did Best Actress, they had 5 previous Best Actress winners come out and talk about other Best Actress winners. And so it's like, it was a really weird, like, long intro. It's like 5 or 6 minutes of these people talking before they finally announced the winners, which is Emma Stone. It was just like, who thought this was a good idea? This is so long and so, like, drawn out. So there's always some missteps, but there were no, huge controversies or anything like that.
Most importantly, what I want to know about the big winners, the big snubs. Like I said at the top of the show, Martin Scorsese getting 10 nominations and not winning a single one, which I hear is the same as what happened with Irishman. What do you think?
So there's this attitude in Hollywood and at the Academy of, well, what have you done for me lately? What have you done for cinema? What have you done for studios? What have you done for Hollywood? What have you done for theaters? And unfortunately, Killers of the Flower Moon was a $200 million flop by box office standards. It was financed by Apple, who's got more money than God, and so they don't really mind that they lost money, and they're also looking for this to help boost their streaming service. And so it's something that I think because of that, it doesn't really help the industry as a whole very much. And you made a movie that wasn't really theatrically viable, and I think there's a little bit of a message here, and I think this is part of the reason that why Lily Gladstone didn't win. It was like, if you're going to make movies in this town, you need to work with the studios, and you need to make the studios money. The stuff working for Apple, it's not going to cut it. Same thing with The Irishman. Same thing with The Irishman, where with Netflix, 10 nominations. Again, no theatrical release. You're not making money for the studios, the theaters. So I think that they're not rewarding that.
Yeah, I will be honest. I'm surprised that Oppenheimer alternatively won as much as it did. Like, boy, that rock just started rolling downhill and they couldn't stop it. And I would have loved to have seen like a Holdovers upset here or there. That would have been a lot of fun. But otherwise, like mostly a pretty safe Oscars. I think that seems to be like the general impression. Emma Stone beating Lily Gladstone. Listen, like I thought Lily Gladstone was great in Killers of the Flower Moon. But boy, Emma Stone's really good in Poor Things too. You know what I mean? And like sometimes that's just what it comes down to. It's like two or three people will be really incredible in a category. There can only be one winner. Denzel Washington said it once, right? You're all winners in my hearts, ladies. But there can only be one, and that's okay. Otherwise, like it's an honor just to be nominated. Just like me saying De Niro should have won. Like come on, it's incredible just to be nominated. That's part of the whole thing.
I think also we got to talk about Bradley Cooper in Maestro. Maestro had 7 nominations, I believe, 0 wins. He wanted that Oscar so bad. Was really weird about it. And Maestro's just, man, that movie was such a chore. It's just not very good. And like it really missed the mark. If anything, Bradley Cooper was better as Rocket Raccoon in Guardians 3. So not really surprised there.
I liked him more in his voice only role. That's
Good thing you spent 6 years learning to conduct.
I really am curious to see if his next feature gets as much buzz as this one did. Because like I said, I mean, for Maestro, he was coming hot off A Star Is Born, like which obviously got a lot of love and a lot of attention. Like I get that his next feature follow-up would be well revered. I'm curious to see if his third one is, right? Like I don't think Damien Chazelle is going to get as much love for his follow-up after Babylon. And it's not that Babylon was a bomb. It just was art that was perceived a little differently. And I think Maestro's kind of in that category. It wasn't for me, wasn't for Andy. Somebody out there likes Maestro, I'm sure, right? Like somebody's got to be into it. Look at how many nominations it got. It just didn't quite get over the hump, and I think that's more than okay. I already said my piece on Boy and Heron versus Spider-Verse. Like, again, huge just to be nominated. I'm glad I'm just Ken didn't win. That would have been goofy. We all know it would have been goofy. Overall, I don't know, man. I think it was pretty, like I said, pretty safe Oscars, all things considered. It feels like nobody got too burned other than maybe Scorsese and 10 noms. My God, 10 noms.
Yeah. I think Barbie's the other one that Barbie only got Best Original Song. And I think there's a little bit of a kind of sniffiness and elitism still in the Academy. And Barbie was a big blockbuster, very kind of mainstream film. And usually they're looking to reward smaller, more art house styles. And also there was like the post-nominee backlash, which probably rubbed people the wrong way as well. So but it was surprising that it because a lot of people thought that Barbie would win for like production and design and costumes and that sort of thing, and that went to Poor Things.
Yeah, I'm so interested, like coming off the heels of our Warner Brothers story last week, talking about Warner Brothers picking up Tom Cruise, who said he wants to be in more art house kind of stuff. Like, I wonder if he looks at Mission Impossible's performance here and thinks, nah, man, like I should be getting a lot more attention. Maybe he feels like he's not part of the conversation. Meanwhile, Universal picks up Chris Nolan for Oppenheimer, and look at him. Oh my God, that's the best studio acquire that could have ever happened. Like funding Oppenheimer is the greatest thing that's ever happened to them. Warner Brothers taking a huge L for getting out on that. Overall, like, I think everybody's in a pretty good spot. If anything, Disney, horrifically underrepresented here. They've got to get it together. Disney is not making a great show out here. Paramount not making a lot of attention, but Universal and Warner Brothers and a little bit of that Apple, like getting a lot of buzz, a lot of things going on. Apple clearly spending a lot of money to get attention. Didn't quite pay off this year, but I mean, boy, a lot of nominations.
Yeah, it's the studio game is part of this. The studio's campaigned for stars and for different films, and the streamers are involved in that as well. Netflix has still not won a Best Picture Oscar, and I mean for years, and they get nominated every year, and sometimes they lead nominations a lot of years, and they still have yet to capture the top prizes.
Well, we should pivot out of the Oscars, I think. We've talked plenty about them. I do want to talk about some things coming out this summer, some trailers upcoming, so it might be a good time to get to it. But before we do, Andy, any other thoughts on the 96th Academy Awards ceremony?
Nothing new. Like I said, it was very safe. The people who won, who we thought would win, did win. Not really, no controversies, no big upsets. We'll definitely try and watch next year though, since I keep getting asked about it more, and I want to authentically report on it.
Same. Yeah, we're only becoming more and more ingrained in Oscar culture. Yeah, no. Overall, not bad. I like the format changes. Having 5 people hand out some of the bigger awards, like Best Actor and Best Supporting Actor, is too many. It just looks goofy on stage. And for the love of God, don't let Al Pacino do any more Best Picture nominees. But other than that, I think we're all square. Yeah, Mike, let's get you to bed, Grandpa. Yes, I think we're all squared away. That's the 96 Oscars. And with that, we should move on to our next segment. Andy, what do we call this?
It's time for the trailer park.
Perfect. So our first film is what I'm going to be talking about. And I actually had a lot more of this queued up before the live stream, which is a shame. Kind of get things messed up. But we're going to be talking about Borderlands, Eli Roth's new feature, based on a video game, of course, by the same name. Borderlands is the story of a group of wayward treasure hunters on a faraway planet covered in beasts that'll kill you and dangerous territories and psychotic marauders. A bit of a Mad Max kind of thing. Film stars Cate Blanchett, Jamie Lee Curtis, Kevin Hart, and Jack Black and Ariana Greenblatt, I think, as our kind of group of core 4 heroes. It's big, it's flashy, it's tie-dye, and let me tell you, everybody in it's really old. They're really old, Andy, and there's nothing about Borderlands that points to being for old people, so I'm not really sure how exactly this worked out, but this is Eli Roth's new feature. What do you think?
This looks like a lot of fun. It is an old cast. This is like Cate Blanchett, who's in her 50s as an action star. But, a lot of male action stars have been doing the same thing. I mean, Liam Neeson is making his action movies in his 60s. So it's one of these things. It's easier to train an actor to be an action star than to have it used to be you would get someone like Schwarzenegger or Steven Seagal and just throw them in a movie because they were like a badass. Now we kind of do it the opposite, but it's like you also have to suspend a little bit of belief. This looks really fun. It does look a lot like Guardians of the Galaxy, but other than that, I mean, I'm excited to see it.
Yeah, it looks all right. I guess you're right. Maybe I'm being a little too harsh on it. I played a lot of those games though, so I'll be curious to cover it whenever it does come out. And I don't actually have the date it's coming out, but this summer,
August 9th.
August 9th. Keep an eye out on your calendars for our off-script review for it. What's next?
Horizon: An American Saga, Chapter 1. So Horizon is a new big epic Western starring Kevin Costner. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. I was like, I always get him and Michael Keaton. I always want to say the opposite. Kevin Costner. And we don't have a lot of plot, but it's big. There's horses, there's cowboys, there's covered wagons, there's indigenous peoples, there's gunfights, there's bad guys, there's saloons. It's the most Western movie that ever Westerned. It's this big epic. It's in 2 parts. There will be a movie that comes out in June and then one in August, so 2 months apart. And all we know is they're trying to move these wagons west and not much else. But it's very, very sweeping look at the American West, and we don't have a lot of plot. It's mostly vibes right now. It does look pretty interesting, but I'm also a little skeptical because this looks like the most propaganda movie ever about the old West. But we'll see. We'll probably have to watch it because it looks like a big deal.
Yeah. No, it's It's a good time, Horizon. I know it's one part of a series, which is kind of exciting of films. I know Kevin Costner won Best Picture when he directed Dances with Wolves, so I know the man can make a Western, but it's been a minute, and it does feel a little like it's coming hot off the heels of whatever horrific on-set arguments led to him leaving Yellowstone, which was an acclaimed series he was a part of. I know it's not Yellowstone, but like...
It
looks
looks like the
just
greatest film of 1988.
Yeah, it just looks a whole lot like it's fine. Kevin Costner's doing his thing, and hey, for all I know, it'll be a banger. I don't know. It looks okay. It's certainly full of cameos. Luke Wilson's in here. That's exciting. Next film we need to talk about is an A24 feature called Sing Sing. That's from a new director, Greg Quidar, who I don't know. Quidar? I actually don't know how to pronounce that. And stars Coleman Domingo as Divine G, who's imprisoned at Sing Sing for a crime he didn't commit. It's a modern prison. And he finds purpose by acting in a theater group along other incarcerated men. It's film grain, right? And it's small, and it's a intimate cast, and ultimately it looks like the troubles of a man who's in prison and looking for some kind of purpose, right? Unable to escape and trying to kind of find that in humanities. And I think that's a good thing. I think it's an opportunity for Coleman Domingo to show off. I mean, this year he already was nominated for Rustin, didn't win, but I mean, he's moving up those rows in those Oscar categories. He was incredible in The Color Purple. I think we're going to see a lot more of him soon. This might be the film that puts him over. Who knows? Or it might just be something small. I'm not sure. But either way, it looks intimate, looks interesting. It's an A24 joint. What do you think, Andy?
Yeah, it looks really interesting, heartwarming, heart tear jerking. Some tough stuff. Reminds me a little bit of has a little bit of that Shawshank Redemption vibe to it. Interesting. Adam Driver kind of did some of these programs too, like bringing theater programs into prisons and working with that population to just have something positive to work on and like a skill to be expressive and to be human while being incarcerated. Next up is a new horror film called Late Night with the Devil that's actually coming out this month, I believe. In just a couple of weeks. And this stars David Dastmalchian as a 70s late night host who's struggling with ratings back when ratings were everything in TV. Everyone tuned in. He decides to bring in someone who claims they can speak with the devil. And of course, everything goes wildly wrong. This looks really crazy because it's shot in that 70s style. It's in like 4:3. It's real grainy looking. It looks a lot like X or Pearl, that style. And it's only 90 minutes, so I'm excited to see where this goes.
It reminds me of like the feature length version of like some of the best scenes in Jordan Peele's Nope, when you've got like a live studio audience in like a sitcom setting and there's some whack stuff happening, and everybody's like listening to the applaud sign and clapping and doesn't really know if it's a bit or not. And meanwhile, you have this host who clearly is making some deals he shouldn't be making to try to chase success. I don't know. Could be rad. Looks really low budget, but I'm very interested. Then the last movie we need to talk about is the full trailer for Inside Out 2. I did a lot of dunking on Disney in our animated segment there, and I should say that this is what they're working on. This is their new thing, right? Inside Out 2 is going to be their new feature. They're big animated this year. Directed by Kelsey Mann, Inside Out 2, of course, follows the events of the first film, starring Riley and her emotions in her head. She's turning 13 now, going to hockey camp, and joy and sadness and all the usuals are surprised to find that she's gained some new emotions. Namely, anxiety is played by Maya Hawke, friend of the show, Maya Hawke. Envy, played by Ayo Edebiri. And embarrassment. I don't actually remember who plays embarrassment, but some new things. And of course, they have to, have some kind of grand adventure in Riley's head to sort out how she really feels. It's a whole lot like Inside Out 1. And I tell you, Andy, I'm frustrated with this one because I actually liked Inside Out 1 a lot. I thought it was a return to form for Pixar in a time when they seemed to be struggling. And yet this doesn't really... I don't know, man. Doesn't really do it for me. I don't think we're really doing anything new here. It just feels like we're in sequel territory. What do you think?
This looks so derivative It also, you know what this looks exactly like to me? Mean
Mm.
Girls. It's like the same plot. It's like, oh, Riley's got new friends, and now she's not cool with her old friends, and it's like that's exactly what happens in Mean
Funny
Girls.
and true. Yeah.
Yeah, they are. I mean, we will have to see it and see. I mean, maybe they knock it out of the park. I don't want to run it off too soon, but it does. It introduces again new emotions. We get to see Riley growing up a little bit more, developing things like anxiety, ennui, what's it, embarrassment. That I was like, everyone's going to relate to the cringe of
Right.
of that one. I think I don't know, man. They like Pixar's their brand has really been suffering the last 4 or 5 years, and I don't know. Like, there's so much better animation out these days. It looks kind of dated now, and we'll see. Maybe it's a banger.
Yeah, it could be. We'll see. We'll cover it here on Off Script almost inevitably, if anything, because I like the first one so much. So that's Inside Out too. Hopefully Disney gets something out of that. I hope that fills the coffers and they can make more movies. We'll see. Disney's obviously not hurting for cash, but anyway, we've got one more movie to talk about on the podcast this week. Not actually a trailer, but a full film, and I'm going to be taking the summary on it. So please excuse my clumsy delivery. The movie is All of Us Strangers. So All of Us Strangers is the story of Adam, a screenwriter who is very lonely, just a lonely man. He doesn't have really anybody in his life, and he lives in this isolated tower block of apartments just on the other side of London. When he meets one night Harry, played by Paul Mescal, very nice guy. They kind of have a chance encounter, and things move along. That evening or that next day, looking for inspiration, Adam decides to take the bus and the train back to his old childhood home after looking at some photos. And when he arrives, he is not really surprised to find, but almost pleasantly surprised to find his parents from back in the day are still there. His mom and dad, played by Claire Foy and Jamie Bell. After a great evening in with them, catching up and talking about how things have been for their young boy since they last saw him in an odd sort of surreal Charlie Kaufman dreamlike sort of way, Adam heads back to his apartment, and he meets with Harry again, and they kind of talk about what had happened, and then the next day he goes back. It's this series of kind of back and forths with a young man, prominently gay, who is kind of struggling to find meaning and a place for himself in society, talking to his parents who are no longer around. They died in a car crash when he was 12, and he kind of has to wrestle with this idea of whether or not they're real or the things he's seeing make sense. Like I said, it's a quiet, almost dreamlike sort of film, and it's been getting attention and buzz both for its interviews with Andrew Scott and Paul Mescal, who have really fun chemistry, and also because it's an intimate little something, and maybe this will be a bit of an Oscar feature, but didn't really get any nominations, and nobody really went for it, and it couldn't find distribution anywhere. So when it finally fell onto Hulu, where we just found it a couple weeks ago, I thought, well, this will be a fun fill-in. We'll cover this in the show. And I think I'm glad I watched it, but it's definitely not what I expected. Andy, what did you think of All of Us Strangers?
I really enjoyed this for the most part. It's a little slow. It's a little bit like eating your vegetables, and it's a movie that's really interesting to discuss after you've seen it. I've heard it described a number of ways. It is based on a Japanese novel, and it's a bit of a ghost story. It kind of has that Spirited Away or Marnie Was There kind of from Studio Ghibli, where it's fantastical. He's either like going back in time, or his parents are showing up at his age now. But imagine you at your adult age going back and talking to your parents at the age they were when you were 12, and talking about the kind of problems and shortcomings that you never had a chance to discuss because you were a child, and what that kind of means, and how that helps our character develop. That stuff is really interesting to me when he's having these conversations with his mom, and it's really strange because when he has a conversation with his mom and his dad, and it's their first conversation is really about his coming out and him talking about being gay, and his mom was like, oh, I'm so shocked, I had no idea, like I did, and she talks in a very arcane ways, the way people used to look at homosexuality. She started, well, aren't you worried about AIDS? Like this kind of gay panic that what was normal for the 80s and 90s. And it's not the reaction you would expect from her. And his dad is kind of the opposite, where he's like, oh, I always knew that you were gay, and I wish I would have done better to support you, and when you were getting picked on at school and all those things. So it doesn't kind of, it goes differently than you think it would go in that situation. And he addresses other issues with them. And the thing that we know from early on, not a spoiler because it happens in Act 1, but his parents died in a car crash when he was 12. So when he's seen their ghosts, it's when that's how old they were, is that kind of the last time he saw them, and he's grown up without them. They haven't seen him grow up and become a full-fledged adult.
It's particularly interesting this is based on a Japanese novel because nothing in the film is particularly Japanese. Like it is a London film. Not only does it take place in London, or just outside of it, I should say, our two characters are Londoners, and all of the music is like old British pop. I've been listening to some of it on Spotify. Actually, some good tracks in there. Want to mention, by the way, so some heat on the All of Us Strangers playlist, but I think one of the things that's interesting is the way this movie walks this line between like a dreamlike state and reality. And when we're like introduced to Adam, like we discover he's lonely simply because he has nobody to talk to. And that doesn't mean that like you get the charming internal monologue of Michael Fassbender's The Killer in David Fincher's The Killer on Netflix. No internal monologue. It's just silence. It's a little bit of music and him just sitting around looking out windows. And then he's out in a field and he's sitting around looking at the field and he's walking around looking at stuff. And like, I get that. That's all very thoughtful. I totally get that feeling, but also it just gets a little dull. It's not a big cast in All of Us Strangers. Like I said, our four leads are introduced right at the front. It's Andrew Scott, Paul Mescal, Claire Foy, Jamie Bell. That's pretty much it. It's a real small cast. And you get these really wonderful highs of conversation. Interaction are the best moments of All of Us Strangers, because those are the moments where we're seeing these characters for who they are, talking to one another. Like Andy said, this fascinating interaction with his parents, where when he goes to his mother, a character who's maternal, who's usually much more accepting, and tells her that in a very casual way that, hey, I'm gay, the reaction to that is just twinged with negativity, and it's so obvious. It's so obvious on Andrew Scott's face that he knows his mom doesn't like what he said, but he's trying to be, hey, this is normal now, and this is okay, Mom, this is all right. And then meanwhile, like the absolute anguish that comes with his father breaking down in tears and like crying and telling him, hey, I'm sorry I wasn't better back then. Brutal. So brutal. Like incredible work. But that's couched in like 45 minutes of nothing really happening, and like it does make it a tough watch on the front. I know writer-director Andrew Haigh. He's done a lot of TV in the past, been very pensive TV. He did Looking, which was a 10-episode series, got adapted into a TV movie. He did a couple episodes of the OA, but otherwise he hasn't done a lot of features. So he's definitely leaning on industry contacts and good friends and grabbing Andrew Scott from stage like to come over and do this stuff, and it plays. But it just needs some kind of editor somewhere to go through and be like, hey, this 20 minutes of nothing happening, this needs to be something. You gotta have our character go to a flower shop and talk to somebody, or have them, have some kind of chance run in or chance encounter. Cause it just, outside of these four characters, it's a little trim on content, I think.
Yeah. The like I said, I was really interested in the parent stuff. I don't really like the B plot, which which deals with him meeting Paul Mescal's character and them developing a relationship. That's the part that really dragged for me. The stuff with the parents is really interesting because that's the premise. That's the interesting. What would you say to your parents as an adult, your adult self? That part's interesting, but and his performance is really incredible throughout. But man, it just gets real slow in that B plot stuff. His interactions with Paul Mescal's Harry are not quite as exciting as you'd think, and it's funny because Harry is so obviously a catalyst for his life to change. Like he goes from being a loner to, hey, we should go out. In fact, I want you to take me out. Let's go to a club. Let's try this exciting new street drug together that I can't say or else we'll get demonetized. And like let's have fun, and let's listen to music, and like that stuff is all really good. And you even get a bit of good drama towards the end when like he's explaining that he's
maybe kind of seen his parents, and Harry's like, what do you mean, Adam? Like, what do you mean you've seen them? Like, all that stuff's pretty interesting. And like, I think it genuinely leads to somewhere that's meaningful, but it's just a bit of a journey to get there. And I don't think that journey is maybe as like pensive as the original work was meant to be. I don't want to say it I don't want to use the words film school. I don't want to say it feels film school. Andrew Haigh done a lot of other stuff, but like it reminds, like, dude, I made little shorts in college and they were terrible. And they had a lot of stuff like this. Lots of like, have your character look off screen for 10 seconds, you know, and I'm listening to music and like, it means that stuff means what you ascribe it to mean. And if you're not, if you can't put that purpose into your film, I think people get a little lost along the way. That's all. It leads to a movie that ends up feeling more disparate than concrete.
Yeah, I was a little surprised that this has been getting a lot of praise. A lot of people thought it would get some Oscar nominations, and I can see why, but it was a struggle. It was a struggle to get through.
Like I said, I do think there's some magic in there. There's even like a couple of really great shots in a couple of these club scenes, like these really clever like crash zoom focus moves that Haig's working in here. Like there's some magic sprinkled in All of Us Strangers. It's just baked in a little bit, and you got to look for it, and you got to spend some time really trying to see what's special here. I do think I think it's a cool movie, but it's low key and it's understated and it's dreamlike. It reminds me of kind of Kaufman, like kind of loose goose Michael Gondry kind of stuff, you know. For people who are into that, I think it's something really special. For everybody else, I think this is why it hasn't been getting as much Oscar attention like we would have thought, right? Why it's been so hard to see it, why we haven't been able to go see it in a theater. This is why, because when you actually look at the film, you're like, oh, this is a bit more of a project and a bit less of a mainstream piece of cinema. And I think that's totally okay. But without giving too much away, and maybe we already have, we should get to recommendations. Andy, would you recommend All of Us Strangers?
I would say save it for streaming. It's on streaming. It's available on Hulu. If you have a lot of interest in this, like I said, there's been a lot of buzz. We'd heard really good things about it. If you're interested, I would say check it out. It's only 100 minutes, but it is very slow, very meditative. It's a little slow. That's all.
Yeah, I think All of Us Strangers is good. I don't think it's a great film, but I think it's a good one. If you like Charlie Kaufman, you like Michael Gondry, you like maybe even a little bit of that Spike Jonze, right? Kind of odd, dreamlike state, surrealist film. I think you'll be into it. It's different, it's queer, it's exciting. It's a little slow. That's the one thing. You're gonna have to slog a little bit to get to the magic, but it's in there. It's a good time, and it's available on Hulu if you want to go check it out. Please do. God, and that's our show for the week. Andy, what a show. Episode 280. What are we at? 285? 245? Coming up on episode 250.
That's right.
God. Big things going on for 250, but we'll talk about that when we get to it, right,
Man,
Andy?
That could be, you know what that could be? That could be Furiosa.
Really?
250 could be Furiosa.
You think that'd line up? Talk about a manna from heaven, right? Like, we line up a Furiosa, it'd be amazing. Anyway, Andy,
exactly.
What are we watching next week?
We're going to be looking at Rose Glass's new feature, who did the horror movie Saint Maud. Her new movie is called Love Lies Bleeding, which is kind of an action drama starring Kristen Stewart and Ed Harris. It's a little bit of a crime caper. It looks really intense. Really looking forward to that. And then we're going to see what else to check out on streaming. We got possibly Dream Scenario or Roadhouse, or see what our options are. And also just some FYI releases. The Mark Wahlberg dog movie Arthur and the King comes out this Friday, March 5th, and the American Society of Magical Negroes also comes out March 15th. That's a movie we haven't really talked about. I saw a trailer for it. It does look interesting and funny. So that's also coming out.
How is Ed Harris still doing features? I bet he's sitting down for over half the film for Love Lies Bleeding, right? How is he still doing movies? I just watched The Truman Show last week, and he looked old in that movie, and that came out in the 90s. I don't know.
Been old my whole life, yeah.
He's been old my whole... That's right. Either way, I'm excited to see Love Lies Bleeding. We will find something else to cover for the show, absolutely. If you want to hear what we're watching next week, you want to keep up with movie news, you want to know what's going on at the cinema, keep it here on Off Script for more. You can subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast platform, iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, iHeartMedia. We're on YouTube. Big things going on YouTube. Big things happen on the Offscript YouTube channel. You got to go check it out. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all those usual places. You might even be watching us there right now. Our website is offscriptfilmview.com, and you can email us correspondence at mail@offscriptfilmview.com. Believe it or not, I have it on good authority that Dr. Draper over here has been doing some fancy interviews around the country talking about Oscar stuff. Those might be showing up on that website. So if you want the exclusive, you want the scoop, you want to hear what radio listeners all over the country have been listening to, go check it out. Somebody might think I'm kidding. I'm not. This is a real thing. Those may or may not be on the website. Yeah. But that's the show. God, that's episode 245. Did I miss anything? I think I covered everything.
No, I think that's it.
That's it. That's a wrap. All right. From all of us at Offscript, the home of bold cinema, I'm Zach Lewis.
And I'm Dr. Draper.
Thanks for watching.